You see a kid kick a service dog and you think you know exactly who the villain is. But what if that monster child had a brain condition he couldn't control? And what if the veteran refused to press charges because he recognized something nobody else saw? When the full story came out 1 year later at that same airport, millions of people who sent death threats realized they destroyed an innocent family. What this veteran did next will make you think twice before you judge anyone from a 10-second video. Subscribe now to watch more instant karma and justice in action. I guarantee every video will be worth your time. Chapter 1. The Incident. The fluorescent lights of Denver International Airport hummed overhead as thousands of travelers rushed through Terminal B. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon, until it wasn't. Marcus Chen stood near Gate 47, his golden retriever Apollo sitting perfectly still beside him, wearing the distinctive vest that read, "Service dog, do not pet." Marcus, 38, kept his eyes forward, using the breathing techniques his therapist taught him. Airports were still difficult, even 3 years after his discharge. The crowds, the noise, the constant motion, it all triggered memories he'd rather forget. Apollo's ears perked up. The dog sensed it before Marcus did. A child's scream pierced through the ambient noise. Then, without warning, an 8-year-old boy barreled toward them, his face contorted in what looked like rage. Before anyone could react, the child's foot connected with Apollo's ribs, hard. The dog yelped. Gasps erupted from nearby passengers. "Oh my God!" a woman shouted, immediately pulling out her phone. "Did you just see that?" another passenger yelled. "That kid just kicked that service dog." The boy's mother, a thin woman in her early 30s with dark circles under her eyes, reached for her son, but he thrashed away from her grip. She looked pale, almost ghostly, her hands trembling. "Ethan, no," she whispered, but her voice carried no authority. It sounded more like a plea. Within seconds, at least a dozen phones were recording. Passengers moved closer, their faces twisted with righteous anger. "What kind of parent are you?" an elderly man demanded. "Control your child." "That's a service dog," a businesswoman added, her voice sharp. "Do you know how much training goes into those animals? That veteran needs that dog." The mother, her name was Sarah Morrison, opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Tears streamed down her face as Ethan continued to make distressed sounds, his hands flapping at his sides. And Marcus? He did something that confused everyone present. He knelt down, checked Apollo carefully, then looked up at Sarah and Ethan with an expression that wasn't anger. It was something else entirely, something that looked almost like recognition. "It's okay," Marcus said quietly, though nobody was sure who he was talking to. Airport security arrived within minutes. The crowd demanded action. The videos were already uploading to social media, but as Sarah's hand finally found Ethan's shoulder and the boy collapsed against her, sobbing, Marcus whispered something that only Sarah heard. "I know what this is, and I can help." Sarah's eyes widened, but before she could respond, security pulled her aside for questioning, and Marcus was asked to file a formal complaint. What did Marcus recognize, and why wasn't he angry? Chapter 2. The Voices of the Crowd. By that evening, the videos had exploded across the internet. Entitled "BRAT Attacks Veteran Service Dog," 4.7 million views. "Spoiled Kid Kicks Service Animal While Mom Does Nothing," 8.2 million views. The comment sections were vicious. "This kid needs serious discipline, what a monster. The mother should be arrested for child neglect. Clearly never taught him right from wrong. That poor veteran and his dog, I hope they throw the book at this family." Internet sleuths worked quickly. Within 48 hours, they'd identified Sarah Morrison, a single mother from Boulder, Colorado, working 2 jobs as a medical transcriptionist. They found her address, her employer, her social media accounts. The harassment began immediately. Threatening emails, nasty phone calls. Someone spray-painted "animal abuser" on her car. Sarah had to take Ethan out of school. The other parents didn't want him around their children. "He's violent," they said. "He's dangerous." At night, Sarah held her son while he rocked back and forth, overwhelmed by everything he didn't understand. The neurologist appointment they'd been returning from that day had confirmed what Sarah had suspected for months. Ethan had autism spectrum disorder with severe sensory processing issues. What everyone saw as bad behavior was actually a child in neurological distress. But nobody online cared about that. They'd already decided who the villains were. Then, 5 days after the incident, something unexpected happened. Marcus Chen posted a video. He sat in his modest living room, Apollo resting beside him. His voice was calm, but firm. "My name is Marcus Chen. I'm the veteran from the airport video. I want to say something important. Please stop harassing this family. You don't know the whole story. I don't want to press charges. What I saw that day wasn't what you think it was. I'm asking everyone, please show compassion. Please stop judging before you understand." The internet erupted again, but this time with confusion and debate. Why is he defending them? There must be more to this story. Either he's a saint, or he knows something we don't. What aren't we seeing? The video went even more viral than the original incident. News outlets picked it up. Everyone wanted to know, what did Marcus Chen know that the rest of the world didn't? Chapter 3. The Past of Marcus. To understand Marcus's response, you need to understand where he'd been. 7 years earlier, Marcus was deployed to Afghanistan, serving as an army medic. He was good at his job. Too good. He saw things, did things, lost friends in ways that replayed in his mind every single day. The IED explosion happened on his last month of deployment. Marcus survived. 3 members of his unit didn't. He came home with a Purple Heart, a medical discharge, and PTSD so severe he couldn't leave his house for 6 months. The nightmares were relentless. Sudden noises sent him diving for cover. Crowds felt like combat zones. His marriage fell apart within a year. "I can't live like this," his ex-wife said. "You're not the man I married." She was right. He wasn't. But there was one light in those dark years. His son, Daniel. Sweet, quirky Daniel, who was 7 years old and struggled with social situations, who lined up his toys in perfect rows and melted down when his routines changed, who saw the world differently than other kids. Daniel needed extra support, extra patience, extra love, and Marcus, drowning in his own trauma, couldn't always provide it. The accident happened on a Tuesday. Marcus was having a severe panic attack in his bedroom, completely dissociated. Daniel wandered out the front door, something he'd never done before, and into the street. The driver couldn't stop in time. Marcus didn't remember much from the funeral, just the weight of the small casket. The way his ex-wife looked at him, not with anger, but with something worse, pity. It wasn't your fault, people said, but Marcus knew better. 2 years after Daniel's death, a veterans organization connected Marcus with Apollo. The Golden Retriever was trained specifically for PTSD, to recognize the signs of an incoming panic attack, to provide deep pressure therapy, to anchor Marcus to reality when his mind tried to slip away. Apollo saved Marcus's life. Not metaphorically, literally. 3 times the dog had alerted others when Marcus was in crisis. Once, the dog had prevented a suicide attempt, so when that child kicked Apollo in the airport, everyone expected Marcus to be furious. But Marcus wasn't seeing a spoiled brat. He was seeing his son. Chapter 4. The Secret of Sarah. Sarah Morrison's life was harder than anyone scrolling through their phones could imagine. She'd gotten pregnant at 22 with a man who disappeared the moment he heard the news. She'd dropped out of college to work full-time, cobbling together enough money to provide for Ethan while living in a tiny apartment. From the beginning, Ethan was different. He didn't like being held. He screamed at certain sounds. He developed elaborate routines and fell apart when they were disrupted. Other parents at the playground would give Sarah judgmental looks when Ethan had meltdowns. "You need to discipline him. He's too old to act like that. My child would never..." Sarah tried everything. Parenting classes, behavior specialists, different doctors who gave different diagnoses. "He's just spirited. He'll grow out of it. You're too permissive." It took 6 years and 3 months on a waiting list to see a pediatric neurologist who finally said the words, "Your son has autism spectrum disorder with sensory processing dysfunction." The airport incident happened on their way home from that appointment. Sarah was emotionally shattered, trying to process what this meant for Ethan's future. Ethan, exhausted from the stressful evaluation, was experiencing complete sensory overload. The fluorescent lights, the crowd noise, the PA system announcements. When he saw Apollo, a large, unexpected presence in his already overwhelming environment, his nervous system went into fight or flight mode. He didn't kick the dog out of cruelty. His brain was screaming danger, and he reacted without conscious thought. But try explaining neurology to an angry internet mob. After Marcus's video, Sarah did something brave. She called the number he'd left with airport security. "Mr. Chen? This is Sarah Morrison. I don't know why you're being kind to us, but I want you to know, I'm so sorry. Ethan didn't understand what he was doing. He has autism and he was in crisis, but that doesn't excuse—" "Ms. Morrison?" Marcus interrupted gently. "Can we meet? I'd like to talk to you and Ethan, not about pressing charges, about something else entirely." Sarah hesitated. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion, "I think I can help your son, and I think maybe he can help me too." What could a traumatized veteran and an autistic child possibly offer each other? Chapter 5: The Impossible Connection. They met at a quiet park 3 days later. Sarah was nervous, expecting, she didn't know what. More judgment? Legal papers? Instead, Marcus arrived with Apollo, a folder of documents and tears in his eyes. "I had a son," he began. "His name was Daniel. He was a lot like Ethan." For the next hour, Marcus told them everything. About Daniel's struggles with social interaction and sensory issues, about his own PTSD making him unavailable when Daniel needed him most, about the accident that took his son's life, and the guilt that nearly took his own. "When I saw Ethan in the airport," Marcus said, his voice breaking, "I didn't see a bad kid. I saw a child in distress. I saw my Daniel. I saw all the signs I missed back then because I was too caught up in my own problems." Sarah was crying now, too. "I don't understand. Why did you want to meet us?" Marcus opened the folder. Inside were articles about how service dogs could help children with autism, studies about animal-assisted therapy, success stories. Apollo is trained for PTSD, but the techniques overlap with autism support, especially sensory regulation and emotional grounding. I've been researching this for 3 years, since Daniel died. I always wondered if having a service dog would have helped him. He looked at Ethan, who was sitting nearby, drawing patterns in the dirt with a stick. "I can't bring my son back," Marcus said, "but maybe I can help yours. If you'll let me, I'd like to work with Ethan, teach him how to interact with Apollo. Use the dog to help him understand boundaries, develop coping strategies for sensory overload, and build confidence." Sarah stared at him, stunned. "You want to help the child who hurt your dog, after everything the internet said about us?" "Yes," Marcus said simply, "because I believe in second chances. Because I understand that not everything is what it appears to be. And because—" He paused, tears streaming down his face. "Because Daniel never got his second chance. But Ethan still has time." Sarah covered her mouth, sobbing. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Marcus replied. "Let me do for your son what I couldn't do for mine." And in that moment, something extraordinary happened. Ethan looked up from his drawing, walked slowly over to Apollo, and gently placed his hand on the dog's head. Apollo's tail wagged. The healing had begun. But could the internet handle the truth? Chapter 6: The Path to Healing. Over the next 6 months, Marcus worked with Ethan 3 times a week. The first sessions were difficult. Ethan was afraid of Apollo at first, the memory of his sensory-driven reactions still fresh. But Marcus was patient, using techniques he'd learned from his own therapy. "Apollo can feel what you're feeling," Marcus explained. "When you're calm, he's calm. When you're scared, he knows. He's here to help you, just like he helps me." Slowly, week by week, Ethan learned. He learned to recognize when his sensory system was becoming overwhelmed. He learned to use Apollo's steady presence as an anchor. He learned that the dog wouldn't judge him for his differences. Apollo, in turn, seemed to understand his new role. The dog would position himself between Ethan and overstimulating environments. He'd apply gentle pressure when Ethan started to spiral. He'd alert Sarah when Ethan needed a break before a meltdown occurred. But Marcus's gift went beyond the practical training. He gave Ethan something more precious: understanding. "You know what?" Marcus said during one session. "My brain doesn't work like other people's either. When I hear certain sounds, I think I'm back in Afghanistan. I get scared when I shouldn't be scared. Your brain does something similar. It gets overwhelmed by things that don't bother other people. That doesn't make us broken, Ethan. It makes us different. And different is okay." Ethan, who rarely made eye contact, looked Marcus directly in the eyes. "You're like me?" "Yeah, buddy," Marcus said, his voice rough. "I'm like you." Sarah watched these transformations with awe, but she also noticed something else. Marcus was healing too. The purposelessness that had haunted him since Daniel's death was lifting. He'd found meaning again. "I'm starting a nonprofit," Marcus told Sarah one afternoon. "Connecting veterans with service dog experience to families who have children with special needs. We have the skills, the dogs, and the understanding of what it's like to struggle. These families need support, not judgment." "That's amazing," Sarah said. "What are you going to call it?" Marcus smiled, a real smile, maybe his first in years. "Second Chances Service Dogs." Within weeks, Marcus's story, the real, complete story, began to spread. Not through viral outrage, but through careful, compassionate journalism. A local news station interviewed Sarah and Marcus together. Then a national network picked it up. The comments section looked different this time. "I'm crying. This is what humanity should look like. I was one of the people who harassed this family. I'm so ashamed. I'm sorry." This veteran is a hero twice over, once for his service and again for his compassion. We should all think twice before we judge. But the most important transformations weren't happening online. They were happening in a small park in Boulder, where a traumatized veteran and an autistic child were teaching each other how to be whole again. But the story wasn't over yet. 1 year later, fate would bring them back to where it all began. Chapter 7. The Final Verdict. Exactly 1 year after the incident, Sarah and Ethan found themselves back at Denver International Airport, this time traveling to visit Sarah's sister in California. Ethan now had his own service dog, a young Labrador named Scout, trained by Marcus specifically for autism support. The 9-year-old walked through the terminal with new confidence, Scout's vest clearly marking them as a working team. They were waiting at their gate when it happened. A few rows away, another child, maybe 6 years old, started screaming, completely overwhelmed. The parents looked exhausted and embarrassed as other passengers shot judgmental glares their way. Ethan watched for a moment, then looked up at Sarah. "That kid is like me. Before." "Yes, sweetie," Sarah said softly. "He's having a hard time." Without another word, Ethan walked over to the family. Scout moved with him, calm and steady. "Excuse me," Ethan said to the parents, his voice still a bit formal. That was just how Ethan spoke. "My dog helps me when I feel like that. Would your son like to pet him? Sometimes it helps." The parents looked shocked, then grateful. Is that okay?" "Yes," Ethan said seriously. "Scout is working, but this is part of his job, helping people feel better." The overwhelmed child touched Scout's soft fur, and within minutes his screaming subsided into hiccuping breaths. The parents thanked Ethan repeatedly, tears in their eyes. "How did you know what to do?" the mother asked. "A veteran taught me," Ethan replied. "He said we should help people who are struggling, because everyone has something hard." That's when an older passenger, who'd been watching the interaction, suddenly pulled out his phone, but not to record, to compare. "Wait a minute," the man said loudly. "That's the kid from that video, the one who kicked the service dog last year, I remember." The terminal went quiet. Heads turned. Sarah's heart sank. Here we go again? But before the judgment could rain down, Marcus's voice rang out from across the terminal. "Yes, it is." Marcus walked up, Apollo beside him. He'd been at the airport by coincidence, picking up a donated service dog from another trainer. "This is Ethan Morrison," Marcus said clearly, addressing everyone within earshot. "And yes, a year ago he kicked my service dog. A video of that moment went viral, and millions of people decided they knew everything they needed to know about this child and his mother." The crowd was riveted. Phones came out again, but this time, people were genuinely listening. "But here's what that video didn't show," Marcus continued. "It didn't show that Ethan has autism and was having a severe sensory crisis. It didn't show that his mother had just received his diagnosis and was emotionally overwhelmed. It didn't show that what looked like cruelty was actually a neurological response to overstimulation." He put his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "That video showed one terrible moment, but it didn't show the 6 months of hard work Ethan put into learning how to manage his challenges. It didn't show him learning empathy, responsibility, and courage. It didn't show him becoming a young man who now uses his own struggles to help other people." Marcus looked around at all the recording phones. "You want a viral video? Here's your viral video. A child made a mistake in his worst moment, and instead of being destroyed by judgment, he was given compassion and a second chance. And now he is using that second chance to make the world better." He knelt down to Ethan's level. I'm proud of you, buddy. Daniel would be proud of you, too. Ethan, in an unprecedented gesture, hugged Marcus. The older passenger who'd recognized Ethan slowly lowered his phone. I was one of the people who left hate comments. I called him a monster. I'm so sorry. Then do better going forward, Marcus said, not unkindly. That's all any of us can do. The videos from that day did go viral, even bigger than the original, but the comments were different. I judged this family so harshly. I'm ashamed of myself. This is what redemption looks like. Everyone deserves the chance to tell their full story. I'll never jump to conclusions from a short video again. As Sarah, Ethan, and Scout boarded their plane, Sarah turned back to wave at Marcus. He waved back, Apollo sitting calmly beside him. Two broken people had found each other in the midst of tragedy and outrage. They'd chosen compassion over judgment, understanding over condemnation, and healing over hate. And in doing so, they'd reminded the world of something crucial. Everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Choose kindness.